We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather, the Turrbal people of Yuggera land, as well as the Woiwurrung people of the Wurrungjiji land. We recognise their continued connection to the land and waters of this beautiful place, and acknowledge that they never ceded sovereignty. We respect all Turrbal and Woiwurrung elders and ancestors, and any First Nations people here today.
I can't take it anymore!
Good afternoon, good evening, good day, and good morning, Blurtstars, wherever you are around the world. You are listening to the new Blurt.
You absolutely are listening to the new Blurt, and, well, actually, you're listening to half of the new Blurt. As it says in our title, Wencee is Ghan, but not forgotten, which means, at the moment, he's not here. He is in Adelaide, and he has been on the Ghan, hence the title. So just give me a second here. I just need to hide. There we go. I'm back now. So he's on the Ghan. He's had a fantastic trip from Darwin to Adelaide, which he departed tonight from. And he'll be back next week, which is awesome. And he'll be able to tell us all about it with some fantastic photos, because I've already seen some magnificent photos. But before we go any further tonight, I'd just like to say tonight I'm coming to you from Wurundjeri country, of the Kulin nation of the Wurundjeri people. And sovereignty was never ceded, always has been, and always will be Aboriginal land. Look, I thought tonight it's going to be a moderately short show because it's just me. And I thought what I might do, if it's the first time you've listened to the new Blurt, that I'd probably give you a little bit of an introduction to Wencee and myself and why we actually started the podcast in the first place, and sort of what makes us tick a little bit. Because obviously we don't have the notoriety of Dan Illick and the Imperfects and many of the podcasts that we talk about on our show that we're more than happy to give a favourable mention to, because there's so many fantastic ones out there. So I thought it would be good if we just let you have a bit of an idea of who we are and why we do what we do. But before we do that, I had some homework last week, and Wencee said to me that I needed to check out how the treaty was going in Victoria. So I have dutifully done that. And it's interesting because it's not as far through as I thought it would be, but it's not all governmental issues, and it's not, it's obviously not all the First Nations problem at all. It's a little bit of both. It just takes a while for these things to happen. And obviously, when government is involved, it always takes longer. As we know, even to get the voice up, it took 7 years. The Uluru Statement was done in 2017. And then we tried to do the voice, it was in 24 or 23, I can't remember. If it was more memorable, I would remember, but it was very forgetful, unfortunately. So I don't remember. But over the last few years, they've been yarning with the community about various ideas for reforms that will put First Peoples in the driver's seat in Victoria. They've got some big decisions to make before sitting down with the government later this year. And the Citizens' Assembly will continue to bring the communities together so we can keep yarning, decide what priorities the assemblies should focus on. So nothing's off the table, and we want to talk to everyone. Now, this site that I'm looking at the moment is firstpeoplesvic.org/treaty/voice. Now, Wencee's not here. I'm not as good as him on the banners, and he would have that flashed up in about a second, and you'd be able to see that. But I'll put it in the show notes anyway. It's firstpeoplesvic.org/treaty.voice. You can go to that site. There's a survey you can do as well if you want to know. This, just so you know, this is the Victorian treaty. So, I mean, if you want to do it from another state, I suppose that's fine. But this one's the First People's Assembly of Victoria. Representation, how can we make Assembly permanent representative body for First Peoples from Victoria, and what shape, powers and scope should it have? So these are the priorities of the first talks of the governments that they're having. And the transformation of the justice and child protection systems. The Europe Justice Commission is making crucial recommendations. We need to make sure they're implemented in a reasonable timeline. The Europe Commission is something that we spoke about on last week's show, actually, which is the Truth-Telling Commission. And until that actually gets through all of its findings, and until that sort of gets to the end of proceedings, as it were, we won't get to the treaty formation side because, as we spoke about last week as well, the Uluru Statement was all about the voice, truth, and treaty, and truth is the truth telling. So that needs to be done before they can do the treaty. So hence why the Europe Commission is so important. An engagement team, elected members are having conversations about these concepts more at various community yarning events around the state. So if you're mob, come along to one and get involved. Now, I don't know what the situation is if you're not mob and you do want to be involved. All I can tell you is it's firstpeoplesvic.org, treaty.voice. Maybe you can have a chat, get in touch with that website and find out maybe how you can contribute if you are a non-First Nations person. So with that, what I thought I might do is just do a little bit of a breakdown. So why did we start this podcast? Well, the reason that Wencee and I started this podcast is basically because, like many people around, we were just getting more frustrated and annoyed and dismayed at some decisions that we were seeing, especially when we had a LNP government for such a long time that were basically climate deniers and pretty much misogynists. Not all of them, obviously. There are quite a few moderates in there, but unfortunately they would just toe whatever line the LNP was throwing out at the time. So that wasn't a very good situation to be in if you were a woman or you were a First Nations person or you were part of any sort of minority group of any kind in Australia for quite a while. So things have changed a little bit since we've had a new government. It could obviously be better. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. I totally agree. So much so that I will definitely be voting Green in the next election when it comes up. And I actually like Albanese, but the reason I'm voting Green is because I cannot stand by and allow a party I voted for a very long time to keep subsidising fossil fuels that I know and many, many know are killing us and will continue to kill us until we stop mining them. The things we need to remember as well is that most of the fossil fuels in this country are owned, the mining, etc., is owned by overseas, and those companies pay bugger all tax to us, so we're not getting anything out of it, and they're exporting it overseas anyway. Don't listen to any of the conversations about gas, etc. That's all a load of hogwash. We've got plenty of gas. That's not a problem. We don't really want to use it. We really need to transition as fast as we possibly can. As I talked about a couple of weeks ago on this show, there's a massive coral bleaching event, international coral bleaching event, that is just about to occur, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. So it's pretty damn bad. But anyway, that's just an example of the sort of social and sort of political injustices that we wanted to talk about on this podcast. And both Wencee and I sort of read a lot on these sort of things because we're interested, and we thought it'd be good to be able to share some knowledge and learn from each other and people that interact into the program. And we've been able to do that, and there's been some interesting ideas. And so I thought what I'd do with this little potty is that I'll make sure that the contacts are on the bottom in the show notes, etc., and you can contact us at Twitter or Spoutable or just blurtstar@gmail.com. We're really, really interested in, because we know we've got a couple of hundred listeners out there. So we're really interested in what you are thinking about the podcast. If there's anything at all that you would like us to cover that we're not covering already, we do cover a very broad scope, but there could be sort of something niche that you'd like us to talk about a little bit more, etc. We tend to stay away from the Gaza situation sort of thing. I'm not really interested in getting into things that I don't have enough information about, and we're already talking sort of enough about everywhere else. We like to try to, jump into things that are maybe a little bit more sort of nuanced and aren't getting so much of the coverage, especially when it comes to First Nations and different things like that, and history and progressive ideas and all these sort of things. So anyway, this podcast allows us to delve deep into the topic and explore its nuances and foster a community of like-minded individuals who share the interest in what we share. So that was one of the reasons that we started it. We wanted to talk about many things, especially, as I said before, green initiatives and progressive ideas, and also we want to have a bit of fun on the show. So we have some fantastic segments on the show from a fun side of things. We have fun facts and good news and Trump Watch, because that can be fun. And that's all about DJ T. We don't like to say his whole name on this show because that's sort of how we feel about it. It's Orange Head most of the time. And then when it comes to the gravitas and history sort of segments, we talk about indelible Indigenous, which is what I sort of started off with. But we have a whole segment on that, and on this day, which we talk about what happened on this day in history, because Wencee and I are both very interested in what's happening in history, and great people that did stuff again in history, people who did whatever they did. And there isn't any sort of gender disparity here. We go very, very equal on all genders and binaries and you name it. If it's a human of some kind that did it, we will talk about it. In great people that did stuff. The other thing that we've always hoped with this potty is that it can hope to maybe educate and enlighten others that one, they may not know where to get sort of well, I can't say factual information because I would say probably 90-something% of what we do on this show is factual. And I'd love to say 100%, but I can't, because nowadays with so much AI and just so much fake news that Orange Head, brought to the fore, basically, it's hard to say 100%. I'd love to be able to. But with that, Wencee and I, for this show, I know myself, I sort of look at about 11, maybe 12 different types of news outlets, and they're international. Most of them have in fact, none of them have anything to do with Murdoch. If Murdoch owns anything, I will not go near it, as you could probably tell from this podcast. And so I look at AP, Reuters, Washington Post, New York Times, Politico. There's lots and lots of different outlets out there. Axios, there's Al Jazeera. So there's heaps of different ones, and it's a really good way to sort of balance what you're reading and going, okay, well, that doesn't seem quite right. Okay, well, this makes more sense. And then try to, by, looking at all the different types of media that you've now sort of discussed in your own head, or what you've just read, and then make your own informed decision. But too many times people are getting their crap from Channel 7, Channel 9, all this rubbish, Channel 10. It's just all bullshit, honestly to God. It is total rubbish. If you really, really honestly want to know what's happening in the world, what's happening in your planet, what's happening in your backyard, you need to do a little bit of research. You can't just take headings, as it were. So anyway, that was one of the reasons that Wencee and I wanted to start this podcast. Wencee and I, just so you know, have known each other for a long time. I was working out the other day. I think it's nearly 15 years, something like that. And we've sort of always been interested in these sort of things ever since we met each other. Now, most of the things we talk on the show, as I say, are sort of progressive, green, history, political, First Nations, etc., etc. But we also do have science. And Wencee loves his science. He used to be in an astronomical society in Victoria, I believe. And I think he wants to find another one in Queensland if he's not already in it. But he knows his stuff when it comes to lunar eclipses and the moon, and he loves all the NASA stuff. So we get a nice rounded idea about that when those sort of things happen. And also, because both of us come from an IT background, when we do Let's Get Technical, we have a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about because we sort of do it, daily, and we've been doing it for about 20 odd years. So Let's Get Technical is another segment we have, and that can be a bit of fun as well. Also, Wencee has the added sort of enlightenment. If you've listened to this show before, I apologize if this is your first time. Wencee's not with us. Wencee is the co-host of the new Blurt, and he is the fantastic, articulate other side to this podcast. And he's the guy that gives us the acknowledgement to country at the start of the show, just to put you in a nice mood when you listen. And also, he has first-hand knowledge of LGBTQI groups and injustices, and he's got a pretty good pulse on kids with autism as well. So he really does come with a little bit of sort of knowledge in this area now, and especially now he's been a newly converted Swiftie ally, and he's been talking quite Taylor Swift music on this show a little bit lately, and I'm not adverse to a bit of Taylor Tay. It's absolutely fine. But whether it's sharing the insights or discussing recent developments would have happened, we always see the potential to contribute any knowledge or even just something that might be interesting in the surrounding the topic, basically. And so, and we're not scared to go in some of the. We do have every year since we've been doing the show. I think this is season 5. I think this is 164A. Next week will be 165. So we're well on our way to 200 episodes. And of those episodes, we've had a guy called Mark Pastiti on a few times. He is, I believe he's founder of the Black Dog charity, which is all about trying to help people with depression and people that have gone through those sort of things. Now, at this time, Wencee would have been able to put a banner up to help with that, and I will just see what I can do. I probably won't be able to get there as fast as Wencee, so you're going to have to just bear with me. So I'll just pop this one down the bottom. It's 1800respect.org.au, and I know that we do have a lifeline as well, but I can't remember what that number is. I'm sorry, but it will be in the show notes, as these things always are. Anyway, we have this fantastic guy called Mark Pastiti. He's gone through depression, and he ended up being a founder of this company called the Black Dog Charity. We've been very blessed to have him on our show a few times since we've been doing this, and that's another fantastic reason to why we do the show. Some of the guests that we've had and you've been able to listen to have been absolutely fantastic. We have had a magnificent guest for I think the last couple of years, if I'm right, Maria Taflaga, and it's a real shame that we can't have her this year. She's from Democracy Sausage, and she's normally on with a guy called Mark Kenny, who is, I think, professor at Australian National University, Crawford. Was it the Crawford School? I think it's called, or Crawford School of Politics or something. Anyway, he used to also be in the Canberra journalism side of things as well. But he's very good, and Maria was on with him and has been with him for a while. Maria is a political scientist and super smart, super funny. If anyone's listened to Maria on Democracy Sausage or the new Blurt, you will know how funny and smart she is. So she's a big loss to the show this year. But the reason she's not on is because she has another child. And we wish her all the best with the new one. But yeah, it has been a bit of a loss for the show. But we, as I said before, we delve into some pretty deep topics here on the Blurt, and so therefore we like to do some fun stuff like good news and joke of the week. And I nearly forgot Wencee's favourite segment, which is Be Education, where we take it semi-seriously in that we have tasting notes and all the rest of it. But it's been very fun, and some of the times have been particularly fun is when the alcohol is a little bit too much in the can, really. Anything sort of 6.5% up in a can, yeah, you can get quite a fun show at the end. Drink responsibly, just drink slowly. It's not like we're having multiple cans. It's just that one will be enough when it's that sort of high. But we aim to make the discussions fun and interesting when it comes to politics and economics, etc., with our segments on Econobabble and Blurt on Politics and Party in the USA, which is usually about US politics, and Econobabble, which is what Maria Flago used to come on, I think, once a month for us, or once every couple of months. She was fantastic in that. And she also dabbled in Blurt on Politics as well. Now, we are looking at getting another representative for Blurt on Politics or Econobabble. We just haven't got there yet, but we are definitely looking at it. The other thing about the new Blurt that Wencee and I particularly like is, as I said before, we've been blessed with some fantastic guests, and just a couple of them off the top of my head is the Australian Institute. We've had some fantastic green representatives from the Australian Institute, and I will go back to the Institute and see if we can get some more people on, because I know that those particular episodes were very well liked. We've had representatives on from the Red Cross. We play a sting from the Red Cross pretty much weekly, and it's all about giving blood and giving back. And I think we had I can't remember the gentleman's name, which is a shame. I'll have to go back and just have a look at that. But it was a representative from Adelaide, and he was fantastic. He was really good. He talked about how you can actually donate breast milk to the blood bank, which I never knew. And it's not called the blood bank anymore. It's called Lifeblood, so I've got to stop calling it that. We've had some representatives on from the Greens Party before, which was interesting and a shame because one of the representatives we had unfortunately didn't win. And we've had Dan Illick, who's a comedian, satirist, industrial comedian. I think I've heard him termed as before. And he has his own fantastic podcast called Irrational Fear. He's been on a little bit of a hiatus lately, but he's always fantastic when you get to hear him. And Ash Fiesermain, who's a stand-up comedian we've had on a few times. I've tried to organise getting him back. He was very well liked as well. Just hasn't happened at this stage, but it will happen. He does a lot of cruising, i.e. he's on the high seas doing his stand-up, and he's very busy doing that. So it's hard to get him sometimes. It's hard to get the connection out there, but we'll give it a go for sure. And the other thing I wanted to say is that we are grateful for the people that do download and do listen to the show and do enjoy the show. We see a few comments coming here and there, and they're always welcomed with delight and respect. And even if they're critical, we always try to get something from them and see if we can learn from. And for that, we are particularly grateful. Personally, I've loved every minute of doing the new Blurt, and it's definitely not as much fun doing it by myself as it is doing it with my fantastic co-host Wencee. and we've got no intention of hanging up the boots anytime soon. It's only about 10% of all podcasts get to 100 episodes, believe it or not. And as you can see by this one, we're already at 164A, as it were. So we're well on our way to 200, and we would be delighted if you join us on our journey to getting to 200 eps and getting well over 10,000 downloads. That would be extremely good. But also just to, share the community feel and share your thoughts, and if you like the potty, let other people know as well. Just I think mainly because we love doing it. We just enjoy doing it so much, and we hope that you're getting something out of it as well. So basically, yeah. So for tonight's show, it's just all about giving back to the listeners and being grateful. This show is done on the smell of an oily rag. We have some pretty smart technical stuff behind the scenes that make things a little bit easier for us, but we do not have any monetary sponsors or anything like that. To be honest with you, we probably didn't want any sponsors, because then you're a little bit beholden to what they're going to want you to represent, etc. And we sort of weren't 100% up for that. Although, as I say, I'm more than happy to do community service announcements for people like the Lifeblood or the Australian Institute or Upbank or the Bank of Australia. Anything that's got a green bent, it's got a renewable bent, with a progressive sort of ideal behind it, and is really trying to do something to save the planet and create initiatives that keep us towards that goal, basically. So as I'm just trying to say that, what we do, it costs us a little bit during the year. Not a great deal, but it costs us a little bit. But we've never wanted to charge for our podcast, etc. But we just be more than happy for as many people that want to listen can. As I say, if this is the first time you've ever logged in, well, you get a little bit of an idea of why we started it and what we're going to do in the future, etc., and sort of what makes Wencee and I tick. And I just thought I might let you know that, because, as I said before, there's many potties out there that you will probably already know the host before you get on the podcast. And on this one, you probably did not. So hopefully now you have a little bit more of an idea of the hosts of the new Blurt and what we do and why we do it. And I would just like to say with that, thank you very much for listening. And it's good night for me. Next week, we will be back with Wencee, of course, and that will be awesome. And we will be talking very much the Ghan next week. A lot of the show will be dedicated to that. At this stage, obviously, I need to talk to Wencee to find out if we're doing any more than that at this stage. But it was such a big trip and such an interesting trip, it may take the whole show. But we'll just see how we go, see how Wencee feels about it as well. Again, I'd just like to say very, very grateful for anyone that does tune into the new Blurt. We never take you for granted, and really appreciate you with anything that you like to give back to. And with that, I'd probably would very much like to say what I'm grateful for, and what I'm grateful for is my friends and my family. And it is a wonderful world we live in. There is a lot of shit going on in the world, but seriously, there is so much of the world that is just an amazing place. And if we can all just find a little bit more that amazingness in it and keep away from the negativity, etc., etc., I think our lives will probably be better. And I'm not being Pollyanna about this, because I know the gravity of where we are from a climate perspective. But I also know there is hope, and we have tools and we have ideas, and we have the wherewithal to do it. It's just up to us if we want to or not. So, but anyway, with that, I will see you next week with Wencee. And as Wencee would say, bye.